around the repeat election has ended in yet another deadlock. The Jubilee team, led by Deputy President William Ruto, all but signalled its final engagement with IEBC, saying they are now focused on the campaigns. NASA, on the other hand, led by Raila Odinga, the separate meetings with IEBC, saying none of their irreducible minimums were met, and therefore it's the position of no reforms, or the position of no reforms, no election remains. In studio now I'm joined by Majority Leader in the Senate, also Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen, and the Rieda Member of Parliament Otiende Amolo. Thank you both for making time for us tonight. I'll start with you, Kipchumba. You were in those talks. When we had Deputy President William Ruto saying earlier today, and I'll quote him, "We have agreed now that the rest of us," meaning Jubilee, "will hit the campaign trail and we will meet here," that is Bomas of Kenya, after 26th, meaning Bomas of Kenya then having been transformed to the National Tallying Center. Is that saying you're done in as far as consultations are concerned?
First of all, you didn't complete the sentence. He said we'll meet in Bomas on 26th when we are coming to collect our certificate. Why did you ignore that last part? But on a serious note, I was there Hussein today. This was consultation between the candidates and the IEBC. That means the president and his deputy were candidates of Jubilee, and the NASA side, Raila Odinga and Kalonzo, at least one of them had to be in the meetings because of the seriousness of what IEBC wanted to convey. From our side, we made it abundantly clear, and you saw the chairman speaking, that we have no irreducible or increasable minimum to IEBC. We believe that the I in IEBC is independent, and that no matter how much or how many things we tell IEBC, they are the ones who have constitutional responsibility to deliver free, fair, and credible elections. And we think that there are very few days. Campaign days now, by the way, are only 20. And we think that the president and the deputy, who are our candidates, should now focus on the votes. IEBC will continue engaging us. We have a chief agent, which is Mr. Davis Chirchir, and he will be on call as and when IEBC requires us to. For example, they raised the issue of agents and said we should complete our agents in good time and provide the names, which we are providing tomorrow, and so forth. So we will have consistent and constant engagement between our party with IEBC, but from the focus of the candidates, it is their responsibility now to reach out to the rest of Kenyans for the elections.
One of those candidates, and the key candidate there, President Uhuru Kenyatta, did not come. Yeah. NASA talked about it. Yeah. Senator Orengo, saying he's taking issue with that, protesting against Kenyatta's absence. Why was he absent?
Why is Orengo concerned about Kenyatta's absence or presence? It should be IEBC which should be concerned. And the IEBC has not protested. Why is Orengo? Why does he want to know about? You see, the meeting has an agenda. And the invitation said for IEBC to brief the candidates about election preparedness. So if Uhuru Kenyatta is confident that his running mate, who is also the deputy president, can listen to that preparedness, and as you can see, we are all happy. Uhuru has not complained. Why should they cry more than they brief?
Let me get to Tindabal's response.
Thank you, Hussein. 3 comments. First of all, I think the attitude the Jubilee team is taking, as repeated by my friend Senator Murkomen, is one of bellicosity. It is bellicose and presumptuous that they are done with Bomas, that they will go back there when they are going to collect their certificate. And it is not one that moves us forward as a country in terms of where we are. If you want to note that, you realize that the IEBC has made an effort. This is the second time it is inviting the candidates. There are only 2 candidates. William Ruto is not a candidate.
He is a candidate.
I am now telling you, William Ruto is a running mate, not the candidate.
Of course, he's part
Senator
of the candidate.
Let me now speak. William Ruto is not a candidate. The candidate is Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. By the time the IEBC scales it up and invites the candidates, it means the IEBC has realized, in accordance even with the call by the EU and the envoys, that there is need to scale this up to a certain level in the hope that you can reach some sort of consensus. When for the second time the candidates are invited, and you note this is the second time Raila is going to IEBC at the invitation of IEBC, and the other candidate does not turn up, then it demonstrates the lack of good faith. It also disables engagement moving forward. Thirdly, is that the statement that the Deputy President made, that which has been repeated here by Senator Murkomen, that as far as they are concerned, they are happy with the IEBC's preparedness, they have no issue. It is not in good faith. You cannot say you have no issue with the IEBC and you have put your entire team on a fast-track mission to enact legislation that directly sabotages the IEBC's ability to deliver credible elections, even if they are to be held on 26th. It means that the position that the Jubilee team takes is that it does not matter what concerns NASA has, the EU, it does not matter what concerns the envoys have, it does not matter what concerns IEBC itself has. What matters is that the enactments that are now being rammed through the Parliament go through, and that the IEBC continues in the same way they had encouraged the IEBC to continue before 8th of August, and it does not matter the consequences. What that tells me is one thing. Either the Jubilee team would wish IEBC to flounder the way it floundered on 8th of August without meeting the specifications of the Supreme Court, or the Jubilee team would rather let us have a situation where it becomes impossible to hold any elections within the prescribed time so that the president continues.
First of all, this is preposterous. It is actually laughable that another coalition would want us to have a problem with IEBC. We say, let me make it abundantly clear. We have no issue with IEBC. We've never given them minimum conditions or maximum conditions. Number two, we have no problem with NASA having problems with IEBC. In fact, we have no problem if NASA can provide the printer of the elections. We have no problem if they can transmit the results. And we have told them, in fact, as we speak, they have already formed a committee of 2 commissioners and 2 persons from NASA. They are now in talks on their 11, or is it now 12 or 13? We've lost count of it. And we as Jubilee, we were at them, we would be sulking and saying, if they have 10, we have 11. If they have 12, we have 13. We've said, we understand IEBC that no matter how many times we engage them, they have a constitutional responsibility. That constitutional responsibility is not dependent on Jubilee or NASA. They must deliver free, fair, and credible elections. And therefore, from our perspective, if we had issues, we would have raised with them. Our friends have issues with IEBC. We will wish them well to continue engaging IEBC.
You're saying you don't have any issues with IEBC?
We don't have any issue.
Even after the nullified elections, we have no issue.
We have absolutely no issue.
You can go to this election, this special election with the IEBC, as constituted, same team, same everything.
Same team, same everything. You know why? Because it was not us who told the IEBC that they had problems. It was the Supreme Court. And whether we talk to them or not, they have to comply with the directions that Supreme Court provided. It is not in our responsibility to police them. The Constitution doesn't give us any duty to oversight IEBC insofar as how they do their work. In fact, in any case, we are the players. We cannot start telling the referee, you're wearing the wrong uniform, like our colleagues are saying that we need to change the ball midway, we need to do these kind of things. And by the way, we're saying we have bent backwards to say, for us to have credible elections, let IEBC have an engagement with NASA on these 11 irreducible minimums. And the chairman has made it clear that if we find anything that is reasonable from NASA, we will accommodate their concerns under the law.
Okay, NASA is also now calling your amendments as your own irreducible minimums. And Chairman Chebukati, speaking last week, was concerned about those amendments.
Absolutely.
And the timing.
Yeah.
He's the IEBC chair. For course, that he said today he'll present before the committee. You were both here last week when Commissioner Kombe also said it's coming too late in the day.
Absolutely. By the way, let me tell you this. On the amendments that are in Parliament, we have no fixed position. As a matter of fact, we have invited IEBC. The committee has invited IEBC to make presentation on Thursday. Let me even shock you to tell you that the concerns of the ambassadors, we welcome them. Unlike NASA, who have mocked and including, I saw Senator Orengo, I don't know under what influence he had today, he even mocked 58 people who died in the United States of America. And I want to say here that to the people of America, some of us who studied there, who have friends there, who have relatives there, I want to say that we pass our condolences and we welcome, and I want to insist, we welcome the position of EU Observer Mission, who have made a statement. We welcome the position of the ambassadors. We think that their concerns are genuine. They are raising those concerns out of good intentions, and that when the committee finally compiles their report, they will consider all the views that Kenyans have brought. By the way, Hussein, can I shock you? That law doesn't have to pass. There is nothing that says that the law must pass. In fact, Parliament
what do you think will make such amendments not pass?
The report of Parliament, the presentation that people have brought. When we meet next week on Tuesday, we will look at the report of the committee, joint committees of Parliament. We look at the report. We look at the reasoning within the report. We look at whether it makes sense, whether we can even still pass the law next week, but still say the law does not come into effect until October. So, or until September or December.
That's an option. Is that what you're
It's an option in the law. It's an option in the law.
What you're going to do?
I've just said it's an option within the law, and it's an option within Parliament. What I'm trying to show Kenyans is that we in Jubilee have no hardline positions. We are welcome all this debate that we hear about, oh, Jubilee should not rush the law. We have listened. We have ears. We will consider them when we are dealing with the law. And ultimately, when we come up with the law at the time that will apply, we will be able to say, Kenyans have said this is what we consider. In fact, churches have raised very important issues, and we welcome them to bring those issues to Parliament. The sad thing only, the sad reality, and I want to raise this because my colleague here is a member of Parliament. The sad reality is that the NASA team, and I speak for Senate because I'm a leader in the Senate, wrote to the Senate and to the Speaker of the Senate that they are not going to participate in Parliament. I am happy that Mutula Kilonzo Jr. and one other 2 or 3 senators came to the House the other day, and I hope they will come to the House next week, because if there were issues that are being raised, including whether we should dialogue on these bills, the opportunity is there within Parliament and within the representation of the people who are elected to come and do so. Okay, let's get Honorable Tiende. and as you respond to this, I mean, NASA today said their irreducible minimums, none of them was met by IEBC. So what's the way forward for you now? What is going to happen?
Let me respond. Senator Murkomen has said a lot of things before I even come to your question. Unfortunately, my friend Senator Murkomen is speaking from both sides of his mouth. One, he says that they agree with the EU and the envoys and they respect their views. The most fundamental thing that the EU said today, and the envoys I said, and the bishops have said, is that that law is untimely and should be shelved.
We have listened.
You cannot say that you respect what they said and you agree with them. At the same time, you are saying, let the parliamentary process proceed with the hearing. You cannot do that logically. Secondly, you cannot say that in your view, you have no issues with the IEBC, you have no concerns, let IEBC go and proceed, when the essence of what you are trying to ram through Parliament, the essence of what the President and the Deputy says, is the direct opposite. What they say, for example, is that they are uncomfortable with having a situation where the chair is the only person who can announce the winner of a presidential race. They are uncomfortable with the situation where the chair, as the returning officer, makes that decision, and they want it made collegiate, that it must be subjected to a unanimous decision or a vote. You are uncomfortable with the situation where already in the IEBC Act, Section 30, there's an offense in terms of the officers, returning officers and presiding officers not doing certain things. But then you go ahead and create a separate offense, which purports to create a more severe punishment, and it is incomplete. You are uncomfortable with the situation where the IEBC, as it has prepared, and the chair is on record, they are preparing to perfect their transmission of results. They are preparing to make sure it is accurate. They are preparing to make sure that what is in the public portal reflects the results as announced at the polling station. But your amendment says that those results are irrelevant and they will not be relying on, and they don't have to be accurate. You cannot, in one hand, say you have no issues. On the other hand, you are pushing all this raft of amendments, and then when you are asked, then you say that is for Parliament. That is treating Kenyans as fools. You know that those who are pushing the agenda in the National Assembly and in the Senate are Jubilee legislators. You cannot try to treat us to that kind of charade. So that is speaking from both sides of your mouth. But now let me answer your question. Your question is, NASA says that its 11 irreducible minimums have not been met, and that is the position. Ours, as you know, we have to do a number of different things, so I did not attend the meeting in Bomas, but I was in communication with my colleagues there. As I understand it, once they were called, and you know that the candidate was there, the running mate was there, all the principals were there, in good faith. But what then the IEBC did was to take them through the letter that the IEBC had done earlier. You remember the letter that the IEBC did to the in response. And to that letter, NASA had already responded and pointed out why that letter does not indicate how they've met the irreducible minimum. So when it became clear that there was no further and clearer response from IEBC, the meeting then was adjourned. That is when it was now adjourned, so that there were two commissioners to meet with a special team led by Senator Orengo. The hope was that now they were going to bring something more than their response. As I understand it, they didn't. My view on this matter is very simple, Hussein. The issues NASA raises as irreducible minimum are not issues that are private to it. They are issues which, in the view of the NASA team, is the minimum that the Commission needs to do in order to comply with the Supreme Court decision. The irreducible minimum of Jubilee is what IEBC should do to circumvent the decision of the Supreme Court. Now, the way to do this is very simple. There should be no magic in trying to unearth NASA's irreducible minimum. There should be a meeting that is structured, that is open to the press, and we go through it one by one. Absolutely. The first issue that NASA raised, how is it responded?
Both are just the irreducible minimums from NASA.
Well, for the NASA's concerns right now are the irreducible minimums. But of course, Jubilee has brought a further stumbling block.
Okay.
A bigger stumbling block.
You mentioned the international community, you're talking about the diplomats. The other fundamental thing they said, apart from saying the amendments are ill-timed, is that your demands are also unreasonable.
Well, Hussein, they did not say that.
They said
what they said, no.
They said
I invite you to read the Senator Murkomen, please.
Okay, I invite you
to read the exact wordings. To the best of my knowledge, and I challenge you to read them. What they said is that the parties should not place unreasonable demands.
So
on IEBC.
Both parties have placed.
They did not say that it is NASA that has placed. That's number one.
Parties and NASA and Jubilee.
Yes. So it was general. Two, the keyword there is unreasonable. So the reason I'm saying this is the way to go is by looking at NASA's irreducible minimum in the context of a public examination with the media, including the envoys and others, then you can examine the extent of reasonableness. I can assure you, and I can demonstrate, that all the demands that so far NASA has made are quite reasonable, including the ones that have been breached. Let me give you one example. One of the demands NASA was making was not to engage OT more for saffron. Why? For reasons that we've stated. The IEBC has gone ahead and engaged them. Now, it has engaged them, one, and they have said that they are now cleaning and backing up the KIEMS kit by themselves. Nobody knows the integrity of the data they are backing up. Two, they already, I'm aware of 2 court orders, and this is important. There are at least 2 cases, including in Machakos, where the High Court ordered that the election materials, including KIEMS kits, should be preserved. Now, when you go ahead and remove the data, then what will happen is that those petitions must succeed, because there will be no information in there. Now, one of the things NASA wanted was to examine, audit, and preserve in a way that all the parties are aware of. How can that be unreasonable?
Okay. Yeah, you'll have to ask him another question. I mean, you described the amendments by Jubilee as their irreducible minimums, and you want them dropped if talks are to take place. That's what you've said before. In fact, Jubilee legislators now say what they are pursuing is through legal means what you're pursuing is through extra-legal means. So why demand theirs to be dropped before anything else, yet you're continuing with actions like demos? And when IEBC told you in good faith, drop these demos for now, and let's talk before this, they were actually requesting you, you did not. Yet you're demanding from Jubilee to stop the amendments before you talk.
I hate to say this of my colleagues, but those of my colleagues who made those statements, and they are lawmakers, they don't know the law. There is nothing extra-legal in demonstrations. It is deeply entrenched in Article 37 of the Constitution. There is no way you can say... You're saying your demands generally. No, you've said the demonstration.
I said demands.
There's no way, and even the demands, there's no way you can say that a lawful exercise of a constitutional right is extra-legal. That is outrageous. It is indeed legal. The only request you can make, which is reasonable, is that why don't you suspend this as we are examining in good faith how to resolve this now? To make that request and demand of NASA is unreasonable in two ways. One, you have a team, that is the Jubilee team, that has, when you are trying to unravel the mystery of a molehill, they have brought a mountain. And now you want the guys who are unraveling the molehill to back down. It can't work. Secondly, the IEBC must show in good faith that it is addressing the irreducible minimum. When that happens, then you can call them off. But right now, you tell me, Hussein, what is it that has been done by anybody to address NASA's concern to warrant it withdrawing the demos? Nothing.
Honorable Murkomen, you're saying you're not going to say, or you're saying IEBC should not be, it should be left as it is, and you don't have any demands on it. But clearly, from the amendments, it is things you want to change in IEBC. Number one. And number two, when you make these amendments, first, it's already a foregone conclusion because you have the majority in both houses. Your leadership has spoken about these amendments and they say they support those amendments. So would you blame NASA for not participating because it's already a foregone conclusion? And why would you make amendments to laws that were negotiated in the first place?
The Republicans in the United States enjoy a majority of the Senate, but they have been unable to overturn the Obama healthcare bill. Why? Because the minority, which is the Democrats, have been able to engage the majority. And so despite their tyrant of numbers in the Senate, those majority have looked at the reasonable proposals around healthcare bill, and they have defeated their own party proposals. So, first of all, you cannot abdicate a duty and responsibility as NASA. First of all, you don't even come to Parliament. And I want to invite my friend, Honorable Atiendo Molo, all these things he has said to go now through public participation on Thursday or to the committee. Now that he is not willing to exercise his responsibility as a member of Parliament, he can go and appear and make those presentations in the public participation. And I can assure him we will take them into consideration. And we've seen also members who attended the public participation today who seemed to be siding with the NASA side of the argument, and the committee was noting and they appreciated their participation, and their concerns will be attended to. Number two is to say that we did not generate irreducible minimum for NASA. In fact, they had 11. Then Safaricom became 12. Now they found this law 13, and tomorrow they will find something else 14, and they can go even to 15, and we have no problem. By the way, I don't know why NASA want to push us to have a problem with IEBC. We don't, and we are not interested in engaging IEBC with conditions. We just tell them, if we have suggestions, we will make it. It will never be...
But you want to make changes before the election.
There will be no change stamp. It is not IEBC changes alone. It is the election
laws, yes.
And second, number two, it's not... As I told you, I don't know how many times I should repeat. It doesn't mean that the changes will remain as they are. It doesn't mean that they will be passed. They may not even succeed. They may not even succeed. And that's why all these concerns that people are raising, including diplomats, including churches, including NASA, including every Kenyan, the media, we are going to take them into consideration. We are looking at the bill. Ultimately, like we've said about IEBC, the responsibility of IEBC is to make decisions that are going to ensure that elections are free, fair, and credible. In the same way in Parliament, the responsibility for us ultimately is to make a law that has public interest in mind. Number two, Our friends here are blackmailing the country with demonstrations. By the way, if there's something I agree with my friend here, is that it is a constitutional right to demonstrate, freedom of assembly, picketing, and they have a right to do it. And I want to challenge them that instead of doing it Friday and Mondays, because the only remaining Fridays and Mondays are only 6, they should do it every day for the remaining 21 days. Because we have discovered it has nothing to do with changes in IEBC. It is that NASA just changed its strategy of campaigning, and they want to campaign through demonstrations. So if they want to do for the 21 days, I think the country has already gone through more difficult times. They can do it. We meet on 26, we sort out this matter, and the country moves forward. What I want to assure the nation is that we will listen to every voice that comes to us. President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Deputy President has never put any conditions on IEBC.
Listening in as far as the Select Committee is concerned?
The bills are concerned. As far as the Senate Committee and the National Assembly Committee, I speak now as a leader within Jubilee in Parliament. We are willing to listen to every concern that's going to be raised by Kenyans.
But is there still a chance that both teams can talk?
Absolutely.
I
want to emphasize,
apart from the Select Committee, I mean, to come to a compromise
my friends that
in this stalemate.
You know, we have a problem. By the way, I don't know if you know. NASA is not only fighting IEBC, they are fighting themselves. They don't have a leadership in National Assembly. They don't have a leadership in the Senate. They wrote officially to the Senate that they will never participate in parliamentary processes, despite the fact that they come and insert their cards and they move away because they want to protect their allowances and their salary and their being in Parliament. It's hypocrisy. And what I'm saying is that if tomorrow they could quickly come up with some sort of a leadership in the Parliament, and they want to see me tomorrow, my office is open, Honorable Duale's office is open, we can initiate that discussion around those bills. And as we are as plain as we can be seen.
Honorable Mo.
Well, first of all, the hypocrisy in the statements by Senator Murkomen are self-evident. He says they have left Bomas, they will go back to collect their certificate. Then when you ask him the question, he says they are open to discussion and negotiation. Again, speaking from both sides of his mouth.
On the bill.
But let me go to the issues. Hussein, in this country, whenever we've had real issues, it always takes some brokerage of a bipartisan approach. The legislation we are talking about now was bipartisan. And how you approach a bipartisan situation of legislation is not to go to State House. You are instructed that this is the bill and that is what happened. You go to the National Assembly with this, you go to the Senate with this. That is why those bills are exactly similar, except in one part, and I'll point out that. Then you come, and despite opposition, I for one came to the National Assembly, I opposed the idea of fast-tracking it, and I'm on record.
Very good.
The numbers, the so-called numbers, makes it irrelevant to listen to reason.
Numbers. It is numbers.
It makes it irrelevant to listen to reason. So it is fast-tracked, and then you have this committee. The way it was done earlier and the way it should be done is, first, you hear the people in terms of views. That is how Orengo and Kiraitu did this. Then you hear the people, then you negotiate. Then you legislate. By the time the legislation is coming, all the discussions have been done. You don't go to State House and then take the legislation, purport to have public views. And even so today, there's nobody of note that gave any views. And that should be quite telling to that illegitimate committee.
What do you mean?
There's no one of note that
what
gave...
Do you mean?
What do you
yes,
mean
I have just said that.
What do you mean?
Yes, I'll come to that. There's no one of note that gave the views on that matter. You know how Kenyans always struggle. You tell me, do you remember anybody who gave their views there?
I do.
Honestly.
Kaleme Dile, who else?
There was Benji
There were no people of note who made their views. But let me finish my point. Let me the fact that there's an occult does not mean anything.
Either way.
Let me finish my point.
Let me say this.
You see what he's trying to say? He's stereotyping that because he's an occult, he's from the Jubilee zone. Let me finish this statement. The point is this.
We cannot allow.
The point is this. Why would you waste public funds? No,
we cannot allow a situation where we can insult ordinary Kenyans because their names are not known.
Let me make this point. Let me make this point. Let me rephrase it. Why would you waste public funds to go through a public hearing, putting all those members of parliament earning the Jubilee members of parliament earning their allowances, and no member of NASA earns any allowance, by the way. You keep saying that. None of us have earned any allowance. I haven't, we haven't. But why would you waste public funds to go through a public hearing when you know and you are saying that actually you can shelve those bills? Why then not undertake to shelve them so that you can meaningfully hear the voice of reason? You see, the point here is we are being taken for a ride. And my thinking is this, Hussein. It is not about this amendment. It is about generating enough public heat on the bills, wasting time so that no one focuses on IEBC, so that by the time Jubilee purports to put aside those bills, we are 3 days to elections. IEBC will not have done anything meaningful to conduct credible elections. Then we will go to 26th the way we went to 8th. The words Murkomen is using now are the words they used before 8th of August. We have no problem. We don't care who the printer is. We don't care about transmission. Look where it landed us.
Regardless of whoever appeared in the Select Committee, Honorable Tende, these are Kenyans. Yeah. And still Kenyans' views matters at the end of the day.
Let me put it this way. Usually, in public views, you would have organized Kenyans with written memorandum who come and... It is clear that those Kenyans who appeared just appeared randomly. No, I think they happened to have been in the vicinity of the hearing.
There'll be interest groups appearing from tomorrow, I believe, with IEBC also appearing on Thursday. But I just want to say this first of all. I am angered by the attitude of my colleague towards Kenyans. Article 118 of the Constitution tells us we must listen to every Kenyan who brings their views to Parliament. To start separating Kenyans to of note and those who are recognizable and so forth, I think that we cannot allow my colleague to leave here without apologizing. And there's nothing wrong with apologizing. Because I listened, and it was live in most of the media houses. The presentation of those guys, they were fantastic. Written memoranda. People were educated. I think one of them, a person, either Okoth or Otieno, was PhD. It was Dr. Otieno. And I think it will be an insult when we have Kenyans making their presentation. There was another gentleman, I forget his name, who actually represented NASA completely in terms of his views to the committee. So I think, first of all, this attitude of NASA that they are people who are useless, they don't have shoes, they are
those are your words. Those are not my words.
But
those are your words.
To say of note is to actually say there is somebody in this country who doesn't matter, and they have a vote. Number two, I think we need to continue emphasizing that what NASA is trying to look for is a negotiations. Negotiation, I don't know over what. If they have negotiations with IEBC, because they have not said they have a problem with us, they've said they have a problem with IEBC, and they want us to drag us into the problem with IEBC. We have told them, have your negotiation with IEBC, agree. If whatever you agree, we have no problem as Jubilee. And therefore, trying to create a crisis that doesn't exist, that becomes tripartite when we are not part of it. Okay. If they want to have an engagement, and I have offered, if they want to have an engagement on the bill and their views, and I'm sure Honorable Cheptumo and Honorable Fatuma, Senator Fatuma Dula have also listened to Otiendo Molo, because he's a person of means who may not drag himself to the committee of where members of members of public who are not are appearing. So they can as well accommodate the views that my friend here is raising by virtue of going back to Citizen TV online and listen to his views. Okay, so gentlemen, finally, Otiendo, you get the final chance to respond to comment. But generally, I mean, is there any other solution to this? Will the parties talk again? Or are we going to the election as we are right now, a repeat election, where NASA is saying our reducible minimums have not been met, no reforms, no election, and Jubilee is saying we are campaigning and going for the election?
I think
let me settle.
Well, first, I think our position is clear, and it was explained even at Bomas today. NASA remains open to engaging with IEBC, and as far as I understand, there was the possibility of further engaging tomorrow. In terms of IEBC, simply explaining in a very clear way, and I think it is important to explain it clearly, not just with NASA and IEBC. Credible elections is for everyone. I think it should be explained in the presence of Kenyans, in the presence of all these groups who keep giving statements, so that we can examine, in terms of those specifics, one, are they reasonable? Two, have they been met? Three, is there any scope or any space for negotiating or dropping one, or IEBC emphasizing one? What is standing as an obstacle is the position Jubilee has taken by introducing these other amendments. What's standing in the obstacle is the position Jubilee has taken that it is not available for any discussion, and yet you know and I know that even when the IEBC chair tried to constitute a special team, the first grouping to come out and oppose it was the president, the deputy president, and the Jubilee team. I think that if we are to save this country meaningfully, we must discuss these things in good faith, without derogation. We must discuss them without hiding some cards under the table, and we must treat each other with respect. Okay. And I think that is achievable.
Okay.
I think, first of all, we wish IEBC and NASA all the best as they negotiate their reduced minimum. In any case, they have already formed a committee of two from both sides. We hope that their negotiation will be done in good faith, and we hope NASA will go to those negotiations with an open mind. We have blessed them, and as Jubilee, we are saying we have absolutely no quarrels about whatever they will agree, as long as to make the election free, fair, and credible. Number two is that we extend a hand of welcome to all Kenyans. We respect all Kenyans of all age and stature and economic status and so forth to appear before the committee, raise their issues. We in the parliament will ensure that their concerns are recorded, and that where we are required to amend the law to suit the issues they have raised, we will. Where we are required to bring the law to come into effect later in time, we will do it. We in Parliament have an open mind. We are servants of the people. We are ready to serve them. And that we would believe that from the brief we received today from IEBC, that they are ready for free, fair, and credible elections. We will also to welcome the concerns of the international community, both on the bill, but also on violence and people who are raising you know, the status of violence in the country or emotions, and assure them that we in Jubilee will stick to pushing for
any
peace
negotiations before the election, you're saying can only happen, or any talks, or you can only listen through the select committee and the amendments?
No, negotiation on what? On the bill, we will listen to everybody in
no
Parliament.
Other talks you're willing to engage in?
We have no issues ourselves.
As parties in the election?
We have no issues ourselves with the elections, but the negotiations that are going on between those who have issues and IEBC, we wish them well.
All right, let's take a look at your feedback now, a sample on Twitter. This is what you're saying, if you can take a look at a few. Right, Humphrey Mwamburi says, let Jubilee demand same way as NASA for the opening of the server. Whoever had majority votes should be declared the president to save, I didn't get that.
10 billion.
10 billion, yeah. Okay, Michael Moore says, both parties have irreducible minimums, 11 issues for NASA and electoral amendments for Jubilee. Middle ground is needed. KIRUI GIDEON, Kenyans need to move forward. Jubilee, no, NASA cannot and will not hinder Kenyans to achieve their livelihood. Isaac Mudusiki, issues underlying the election must be addressed, and if we want free, fair, and verifiable polls. And Luoi Bundi, Tony, IEBC has an independent body, should not give in to pressure from either side. Let them follow the set of procedures and laws in Kenya, in the Kenyan Constitution. Well, thank you so much for your feedback on Twitter and 22422. As always, as we tell you, we cannot look at all your feedback, but we thank you nonetheless for talking to us. Keep the conversation going. The hashtag is the big question on Twitter. Keep texting us on 22422. We thank our guests, Honorable Murkomen, Senate Majority Leader, also Senator Elgeyo Marakwet County, and Honorable Otende Amolo, MP Rieda. Both lawyers, of course. Thank you so much for making time for us tonight. And thank you for watching The Big Question. I'm Hussein Mohammed. Have a good night.
Thank you.